Today, we're talking about our love-hate relationship with artificial intelligence. This is Cool Cat Teacher Talk.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis. Get insights from top educators, tech tips, and inspiration to elevate your teaching.
Yes, we've talked before about artificial intelligence and a lot of the opportunities and ways that we as teachers can use AI in the classroom. You can find all those episodes at coolcatteacher.com/talk AI. But this is a very special episode where we're talking with people right in the middle of it, including my son, John, who is the producer of this show. Thanks for coming on the show, John.
Hey, Mom.
So, John, today we're going to start off by talking with my students about their kind of love-hate relationship with AI. So do you think that everybody is just a fan of AI right now?
That is the most definite no. My friend group so far have had an overwhelmingly negative opinion of AI. Those that are white collar, at least. Anytime AI gets brought up, it's mostly about replacing people's jobs as far as they are concerned.
Well, we use AI to edit the show because you edited our show before AI and text editing and Riverside we use, and you edit it now.
It makes it a lot easier. I believe some companies will look to downsize if the workload gets lighter so they don't have to pay as many people.
We're about to talk to my students, Lucy and Will. And we recorded this to celebrate AI Literacy Days. So the full interview will be episode 885 of the 10-Minute Teacher. Will and Lucy, welcome to the show. What are kids saying about artificial intelligence as it relates to the classroom? Lucy, you want to start?
I've heard a lot of people say good and bad things about it. Some of the good things are it makes it really easy to look something up if you're looking for something specific. It takes a little while to find the answer you're looking for. But when you're typing it in AI, it just gives it to you straight and it saves a lot of time. But also it makes it harder to be motivated to actually do your work yourself because it's so easy to let it do it for you. So I've heard some people say they can't even write a full paragraph anymore because they're too tempted on letting AI give them ideas or proofread or change their writing level or things like that.
I've heard a lot of the same as Lucy. Some of the better uses that I've heard for AI is actually using it as more of a tool for checking assignments. For example, if you have a paper that you have to write, doing it yourself like you should, but then plugging in your paper and plugging in the grading rubric saying, hey, this is my paper, this is the rubric, how would you score it and how could I improve upon it? I think that's a better use for AI because a lot of people are using it to fully write the papers, which is not good. I think if we can shift the use of AI, it'll become more of a friend in those kind of situations than a foe.
And for all educators listening, we're shifting formative assessment to artificial intelligence, and the kids are doing their own formative assessment if they've been taught how to do that. Let's just talk about AI detection. Okay. I've heard educators brag, oh, I've got this great AI detection tool. Do you think it works? Do you hear kids bragging that, hey, I got through and I got falsely accused? What are you hearing kids say about AI detection?
I don't think that it works if you know how to get around it, because if you just say to ChatGPT or a really common AI tool, write this paper for me, then it will probably not pass an AI detection tool. But if you know how to say, make this sound like my writing style, I want to include this, this, and this, it probably will pass as your own work, even though it's not.
The funny thing about this is my sister in college was telling me about some of her friends were using this on labs. And what they actually found, which is kind of funny to me, is they now make AIs in order to de-AI your papers. It's ironic. Yeah, what kids, I guess, at the college level are doing now is they'll have an AI write it, and then they'll go plug it into another AI, which makes it less detectable. A lot of what colleges are doing, they're making all of their English writing assignments in person with no technology. a lot of colleges are accepting the fact that they can't really regulate the AI, and in order to combat it, they're just doing in-person handwritten papers.
And for people who have dysgraphia and you can't see the handwriting, it's funny. We started using computers because it's like, hey, they use this in college. And now it's like, we'll go back to handwriting because, hey, they're doing handwriting in college. Does this make you worry about the quality of education of your generation? Like, does this bother you?
Yeah, it definitely bothers me because I've seen so many people talking about how they feel like they can't even think for themselves anymore on assignments because it's just so easy to not have to think at all. And so when you have that like for free and like unlimited access to that, it's so hard to make yourself do the right thing and produce your own authentic work.
The biggest thing with it is people are becoming too dependent on not only that, but also just on social media and kind of like a left-right hit, because my generation's attention span now has gone down the tubes because of all the scrolling, starting to lean towards AI to formulate all of their work, which takes less time. And and so it's just it's terrible because we're not retaining the information we're learning. People are using AI to do it all, and no one's really understanding what's being taught anymore, which is very important.
Do y'all feel like that kids are talking about being falsely accused of using AI when they didn't use it at all?
I've seen some people talk about that in college, say that their essay got flagged for AI and it was 100% authentic. I haven't heard a lot of that.
Will, you gave a speech that one region in extemporaneous about artificial intelligence. What were some of your big points about AI, good and bad?
The whole speech was about to what extent should nuclear armed nations integrate AI into the armed forces. My main points were the authority that AI should or should not be given. AI should never be given authority to go and execute something. At the end of the day, a human deciding on whether to act on the information or not. AI has no morals. It can be wrong. And so it's important for us humans to review everything. It needs to be trained by our own armed forces or whoever's using it. It should be their own database and servers that they're putting everything into it. Mm-hmm. It's not just coming out of nowhere from the internet, so that it's more reliable and more accurate on what they're evaluating and stuff like that.
So I want to make a real important point here, which is you understood how AI worked. And so you were able to apply it to a military application because you understood how AI worked, right? And so to me, it's a fundamental national security issue that all of our children understand artificial intelligence and all of our adults. So if y'all could wave your magic wand and make a decision, get rid of AI in schools or have AI in schools, like say it was possible. We know it's not possible. The problem is we can't put the genie back in the bottle. But if it was possible and you could get rid of AI today, would you do it?
I think I would for schools. Yeah, I think I would.
I think I would too, but I think it's a hard decision because I think at the end of the day, a lot of stuff that people don't even realize is AI. If you use Google and like the nice paragraph answers at the top that are like really helpful, that's all AI. I think for the greater good, I guess it would make sense to take it out of the education system, but it would definitely make it not as easy. Even to do stuff completely legitimately and above board would still be a lot harder to do.
So because we are stuck with AI, we are. Think about what is the message you would give to your professors and your teachers about teaching in a world with AI that would make education better?
I definitely think that teachers and professors should teach about how to correctly use AI because with all things like a lot of times teenagers are like, if the teachers and the professors and like the authorities say, you can't use it, you can't use it, you can't use it, it kind of makes it more tempting to be like, but I can. Yes, I can use it. If you're not properly equipped, like you don't know, you're kind of going into it blindly. But teachers and authorities and the professors say like, you can use it. This is how you should use it. Then it kind of takes away the like, I'm going to do it anyway. It's kind of like, okay, now I'm going to listen. Now I'm going to do what you say.
Yeah, I would say, I think two things need to happen. I think it'd be very beneficial if schools started to teach a class on AI and how it worked. Mm-hmm. Just like a short kind of, I guess, like a 6-week or semester or quarter class on how AI worked, how to use it, stuff like that. I think that's one of the first steps. And then the second step is, I think, what Lucy's talking about. At the beginning of the school year, every teacher saying, listen, they need to address it, to make a decision on, hey, this is how you can use it in this class for good. This is how you cannot use it. A lot of applications for AI is good. And I really like our AP CSP class because at the beginning of the year, you said, you're okay and you're fine with us using AI as long as we understand and can explain it, which is very important to me. Because a lot of stuff, if I'm being honest, isn't really necessary to the class that AI can help with.
Both of you know that you know enough about AI to use AI to be dishonest and have AI do the whole assignment. Why on earth would you decide to do the assignments yourself?
I want to have skills that I can use so that I don't need to depend on AI because I'm not always going to have it at my disposal. And to me, hard work and personal intelligence is really valuable to me. And I want to have all of that without just leaning on technology all the time.
It's just a moral compass type thing. Like, we've always been taught to do the right thing, whether it's hard or easy. And furthermore, I think education is really important because it just makes life easier. And it makes you more capable to do stuff that you might not ever think you'd be doing.
Without a moral compass, we're not going to make it because it is too easy to use the crutch, to use the enabler to steal a good education from yourself. And so valuing the importance of education and even doing the right thing when sometimes you might not get the grade somebody else got. But I'm hoping that a lot of you educators are going to listen to this conversation and wake up and understand we got to talk about it at the beginning of the year. We got to talk about appropriate and inappropriate use, put it out there, but also have the conversations we need to have. Do you want to learn more about artificial intelligence? On April 29th, 2005, from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be teaching a 2.5 CEU course for the Darton Foundation at Albany State University. The name of the course is AI's Role in Transforming Education, A Journey to Understanding. The $25 enrollment fee benefits student scholarships. So join me, sign up at coolcutteacher.com/AI course. John, you really think that most people in younger generations, and even probably mine, if they could wave a magic wand, they would get rid of AI?
Yes. My generation, they've been shoved a lot of negative things in their face, and it's very difficult to have hope in the future sometimes.
Like what negative things, for example?
Mainly about the housing market, about how some older people are making it to where nobody inherits anything, so there's no generational wealth. They'll never own a house. Rent is constantly going up. Groceries are constantly going up. Wages aren't going up. People really want to just escape from that. That's why things like video games are so high up right now, experiencing record profits in that industry.
And a lot of people in younger generations are leaving social media in droves because they don't want it to think for them. And really, you feeling like all this is shoved in your face is a good way to put it, because the algorithms are trying to give you what they think that people will click on. But fear has always traveled faster than faith and hope and love and joy, because fear has a higher engagement rate. These news companies that we read are throwing fear as the headline instead of something great that could happen. I mean, we could have some incredible thing happen today and none of us would hear about it, but something bad happens in some little tiny town and everybody knows, and it can suck the hope out of life if we're not wise, right?
If you go on social media right now, people losing everything just shoved in your face constantly with shorts, or like people reading off things from the internet. That's a popular short format right now.
I'm going to read something off the internet, but this is a research study. So for those watching Cool Cat Teacher Talk on video or YouTube, you'll be able to see this. So I just came across this study today. Dr. Will Van Rijk shared this, and Anthropic AI, which runs the AI model Claude, Anthropic studied how university level students were using their AI model Claude. And so they discovered that students are primarily using AI for higher order tasks like creating and analyzing. It shows an inversion of Bloom's taxonomy in the type of tasks AI is being used for. And this is just for Claude. So higher order thinking skills, creating 39.8%, evaluating 5.5%, analyzing 30.2%. And then the lower order thinking skills, they're using Claude for applying 10.9%, understanding 10%, and remembering 1.8%. So one of the big things that's been said is that, hey, AI can just help us memorize more. But the fact is, it says, quote, as students delegate higher order cognitive tasks to AI systems, fundamental questions arise. How do we ensure students still develop foundational cognitive and metacognitive skills? How do we redefine assessment and cheating policies? What does meaningful learning look like if AI systems can near instantly generate polished essays or rapidly solve complex problems that would take a person many hours of work? As model capabilities grow and AI becomes more integrated into our lives, well, everything from homework design to assessment methods fundamentally shift. This means that people in the university are literally offloading their thinking. So like what Lucy said, where she has a friend who says they can't really write a meaningful paragraph anymore. Like, I mean, I think this should concern us, John. What do you think?
Have you ever gotten a robocall before where it's just an AI trying to talk at you? How often do you actually engage with that?
I don't, but like the reality threshold is being spread. We've really reached it. So if you look at 11 Labs, it's really hard to tell now that it's not AI. I just read a study this week that said that when readers detect that somebody has used AI for images, they think negatively about the brand. And if they detect that they use AI to write the text, that they also think very negatively. Only 16% of people thought positively about a brand that could be detected as using AI, but the risk was far worse.
Big part of that is because when the first large language models came out, they were all free. And people associate that with anything that has to do with AI. Even if it's like a very expensive service, they think you're cheaping out instead of hiring an actual person to do that type of thing.
We've had robot waiters, and I didn't mind, but my students really don't like the robot waiters. So
it just feels soulless is what it is.
Yeah.
You're taking the human out of everything. It just feels like we're turning people into products.
Interesting. Wow. That's an interesting way to look at it. So we're about to talk to someone I've known for 20 years, Audrey Watters. They call her the Cassandra of Edtech. Here's the thing. I'm not anti-AI. I am pro-human. So after we talk with Audrey, I'm going to show some kind of bothersome things that my ChatGPT has done lately. So Audrey Watters and I have been in each other's circles for at least 20 years. She is a writer, an independent scholar. She's a prominent critic. She is recognized for her writing on her blog Hack Education, her books. But AI it's a tough thing, isn't it?
So thank you. I'm thrilled to get to see you and chat with you. I think that because you and I have both been in and around education technology for so long, I think on one hand, you can sort of see the way in which hype works. You can sort of see the way in which these stories get crafted, and it's very easy to get swept up in them. I think one of the things that often happens is that there's a narrative that's quite popular that schools haven't changed for hundreds of years. I heard someone say thousands of years. I thought, are you sure about that? Are you sure?
Socrates on a rock. Yeah. Although we might have to go back to Socrates on a rock, Audrey.
But, schools haven't changed, and technology is changing faster than it's ever changed before. And if you don't get on board, you're going to be left behind, and your students are going to be left behind. And I think that story makes us all feel very unstable and fearful, purposefully fearful, and it makes everyone feel as though they have to do something right now. But I think if you step back and take that longer look, you can sort of see that, wait a minute, I think we should be thoughtful, we should be careful, and we don't have to jump from trend to trend every time the business side of things, the technology industry tells us that this thing is happening and it's happening so fast. I think that the world can feel that way, but I'm not sure it's true, right? Artificial intelligence has been around for at least for 70 years. So we can take a deep breath and we can really look and ask, I think, questions, and not just about what the technology can do technically, what it promises to be able to do technically, but we can ask the other questions around it, right? Like, who do these technologies serve? How might they change education? What are the political implications? What are the intellectual, epistemological implications? And then I think, what are the moral implications,
Yes.
right? Is this the right thing to do morally, not just sort of because of these other rationales for why we make decisions, but is this morally the right thing to do? And I think being thoughtful and careful, human to one another in this particular moment politically in this country is incredibly important.
Here's the thing, after teaching for 23 years, you relate to educate. And as great as the technology is, the most important thing in my classroom is my human relationship with my students. Technology is a tool, but without that relationship, the tech means nothing. And so that's what bothers me the most about people saying AI is the solution for the teacher shortage. And I'm like, no, like that's so dismissive of what we do as teachers,
I think it's so dismissive of who we are as humans. I think the role of the teacher obviously is so crucial in any classroom, but the role of the students in their relationship with one another is also often, I think, where some of the most important learning happens. And this is, I think, one of the drawbacks to this push for personalized learning is that it reduces all of us to this sort of most atomistic, most individualistic level. It's just if it's a relationship, it's a relationship between a student and the software and the content, and not a relationship with one another in which we are all building and working through ideas together, that there's a reciprocity that happens in the classroom that's not simply about the these classic models of like the teacher depositing knowledge into students' heads. We know that's not true, but it's all of us together. You learn when your peers make a mistake.
Yeah.
You learn when your peers get things right. You learn from the feedback that you hear, not just from the teacher to another student, but you hear feedback from each other, and in both social and I think cognitive ways. And I think technology tends to engineer us and isolate us from that experience, from with a teacher, someone who cares, and from with the community, and learning to care about each other. And I think if we look at this sort of what's happening socially, culturally in this country, I think the ways in which algorithms are isolating us and sort of diminishing our ability to understand different viewpoints, to have empathy for different ideas in different people. I think it's all interconnected to some of these things that technology promises to do in the classroom that I think we should ask more questions about. Again, is this the right thing to be doing?
I love that because it so resonates. We're getting ready to kick off an app building project. Adam Grant, in his book Hidden Potential, talks about collective intelligence. So I have a whole unit I actually do with my students on collective intelligence and on how they can be more working together than they could be individually. And to me, when we just talk about plugging a kid into a computer all day long, I mean, number one, our kids suffered in 2020.
Yeah.
We can say whatever we want to. We all suffered. children suffered. And plugging a kid into a computer for 3 hours a day, it really actually makes me angry because of all the PTSD, all the kids who wanted to kill themselves, all the stuff that came out of that. And so for me, yeah, using technology, and we use AI in our project and we use all of that, but it's so personal because we talk about collective intelligence and how do you work together. And the fact that usually the leader of a group is the person who talks the most, but not the best leader, right? And so last year, for the first time, I had introverts elected the heads of groups. You can't teach that plugged into a computer.
I think that one of the things that technology seems to sort of try to engineer away from is that we're all inhabiting bodies. There are all of these cues that we pick up from one another's bodies. I think a teacher understands this in the classroom. Technologists will say, well, teachers don't know if students understand or not. And you're like, oh, yes, you do. You do, because it's a human skill. It's a skill that one learns by paying attention to people, and it can be incredibly subtle, but we know those things in the classroom. And I think that the students know those things. You sort of understand pauses in the discussion, for example. It's not just about the content that's getting transmitted. It's all of these sort of interpersonal embodied things that we understand through eye contact, through gesture. I'm a big gesture person. And I think that those are things that technology kind of can't really account for and doesn't really engineer, and gets sort of engineered out, and to the detriment, I think, of human understanding, because I think we are equipped to be able to read faces, read bodies, understand these things. And again, when it's just a relationship between you and the keyboard, you and the screen, the data, that stuff isn't accounted for. And it's just not a full understanding of the human experience of being a person, let alone being a student.
Well, we're a human being, not just a human doing. I do like Edtech. I like appropriately used tools. Even in my AP Computer Science Principles course, it's so human. And when I interviewed my students and I said, if you could wave a magic wand and get rid of AI, would you? And they were both like, yeah, it's not going to happen. But they have a love-hate relationship. They're morally concerned about what this means for us.
I think so too. One of the things I think we have to sort of think about are what are our responsibilities as the adults to sort of help students become, right? It's about an act of becoming. And I think that we do have to sort of help them sort of develop sort of ethical frameworks, moral understandings. There are a lot of reasons why I think AI has a huge appeal to students. And I think it's not simply that sort of students are sort of devious or criminal and they're all looking for shortcuts and ways to cheat. I can't stand that kind of students are guilty until proven innocent that I think frames a lot of this discussion. That said, we have built a world that is incredibly precarious. Or the future just seems so dim right now, in terms of the environment, in terms of politics, in terms of jobs or university. And so in a world which things feel so insecure and risks seem harder to make than ever before, I don't think we should be surprised when all sorts of people turn to these tools that promise us answers. They promise us writing that will be smooth. They promise us something quick and easy, and in some ways that you don't have to be accountable for, right? If you can shrug and say, oh, the algorithm did it. I didn't do it. And so I think the appeal of AI is sort of bound up in this world that we've built, in which we have, I think, in some ways abandoned our moral responsibility to create safe places for children to become.
And as a writer, there have been some times where I used artificial intelligence to support me in my writing. But I have found that there is something about writing for me that is just part of my humanity. It's part of who I am. I have a relationship with the words I write, unless I offload it and let AI write it for me. And then I could care less, right? And so it's almost like letting AI write it we lose a connection somehow with what we're learning, who we are, and what we're trying to communicate.
At the beginning, I said, I think I used the word thoughtful and careful. And I think that those words have sort of layers of meaning to them. And I think that AI is thoughtless. I mean, we like to anthropomorphize it and say that the AI reasons or the AI thinks. It doesn't.
No, it
It's
doesn't.
it's just predictive, automated based on tokens, the most likely next word or the most associative image. So it's not thinking, it's not reasoning, and it's not thoughtful. But writing to me is so deeply thoughtful, contrary to, I think, how I was taught to write in middle school. I tend to sort of write until I've figured out what I think. For me, the writing is really generative of my ideas. Writing isn't how I express my ideas. Writing is how I figure out. And, you sort of, you put things down and you think, well, that, I don't know. Is that what I think? Does that make
Wow.
sense? Does that sentence connect to the next sentence? Are these ideas, congruent? Am I building something? For me, I don't know how you could separate thinking and writing. It's sort of constitutive of one another. I'll say this as a writer. Writing isn't easy. Like anything, I think it takes practice and it takes time. Nobody, contrary to the Jack Kerouac myth that he just sat down and, typed out on the road in one single sheet of paper, nobody does that. It's really very, very hard, but you have to practice at it. And I think that it's worth doing, because that is how we structure our ideas. That is how we figure out what our ideas might be. We strengthen them. And I think that I think it's a struggle. And I don't know what to say to that when people say, oh, writing is awful. I'm like, I agree. And I do it for a living. I hate it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also, I love it because that is how I think.
I mean, who is it who said writing is just bleeding on a page?
Yes.
You've really given me an aha moment. I mean, I just wrote 4 pages in my journal processing some things this morning. And by the end, I knew what I thought. So if writing is thinking, and we've always used writing in education to help us think, see, I don't think talking is the most efficient, because when you talk, it implies there's another person there. It almost implies that you know what you're thinking, right? Because people tie you to whatever you said at the beginning. And no, I didn't really think that. I've changed my mind, right? You feel committed to whatever you say out loud. But I really think in some ways, Audrey, you've given a really powerful argument for the necessity to write it ourselves. So what is it, Audrey, you wish every teacher would know right now in this moment?
That idea of students learning what they think and learning their own voice is very important. And I think that one of the dangers of AI is that it flattens that. If you think about the generative AI, it's built on a corpus of the past. It's built on things that other people said, and because of what it's trained on, largely white male writers. And so that's not necessarily our students' that's not their voice. There was a story a couple of weeks ago about a AI company that sold a product to call centers in which it would make the accent of call centers, which have mostly been outsourced to places like India and the Philippines. It would make the voices of the people on the phone sound white, because they said that that's what Americans wanted to hear when they called. And I think that that's super problematic. If we think about, that's what generative AI is doing for students' writing. It's making their writing sound like a kind of voice that's not their own. We want them to be able to sort of articulate and express themselves and grapple with ideas. We want that voice to be honored and recognized. And AI is not going to do that. It's taking somebody else's voice from the past, right? And flattening that into sounding, I think, pretty banal. Banal.
It's really good at average writing.
Yeah, it's very good at average writing, and none of our students are average. Everyone is exceptional in their own beautiful, awkward, messy way. And that's human, right? That's what we need. That's what we want.
And as I've worked with AI doing meeting notes and AI taking notes, it is really bad about leaving out the most creative ideas. I've seen it as I talk to my students, like, be careful because your most creative ideas will die in
Yes.
your prompt and they never come back out in the generative because it can only generate what it's heard before.
Exactly. The predictive texting, if you type good, it's going to say good morning. It's not going to say good donut. It's not going to say good dog. It's not going to say many of the other things in our world that might be good. It's just going to be like, good morning. We're like, it is 2:00 in the afternoon, Siri.
Exactly. Exactly. I think these are the conversations that real teachers want to have. It's not if you don't use ChatGPT, you're stupid.
Or your students are never going to find work. Or
Yeah.
it's really not what the technology can do. It's more that sort of metacognitive layer about where do these technologies live in the larger sort of social landscape. I mean, there's a reason, I think, why is it in this moment that AI seems so powerful? And those are as important to think about, right, than what the technological capacity is for a particular system.
And you know what really ticked me off was when Snap AI came out with their AI that you can't turn off unless you pay, right? Snapchat. And I had a student whose brother had died tragically. And she was up at 2 a.m. and it just rolled out. And she came in the next morning and said, I didn't know what to do. So I talked with Snap AI about how to cope with my brother's death. And was that a good thing? We talked about the morality and the ethics, and we got her help and we got her all that stuff. But where do I report that and who's held accountable? Because that really made me angry. There was no place for her mother to go say, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you talk to my daughter about her brother's death? There's no accountability. We don't understand how it works, but we praise it anyway. We can't monitor it, but we trust it. We can't report issues with it, but we use it anyway. We don't know the impact on learning, but we give it to kids anyway. Like, should we be thinking twice?
Yeah, I think that these are all such important questions about almost all of the education technologies that we use. I think, education technology, it's a big business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are real concerns about how are we preparing children for the future. But I think the idea that we're sold that this is somehow making learning better, I think we should just step back from again and ask what actually are our principles, right? And our principles are about developing human care and capacity, and sure, cognitive capabilities.
Yeah, of course.
But human capacity. We should invest in people before we invest in software. We have to develop people. Again, we have to provide a space for children to become something before we engineer and foreclose their future with an algorithm that says, oh, we've only decided that your future can be this small sliver because that's what the data has predicted for you. Again, children shouldn't be tokens that we're just sort of generating out and sending this way. We are humans and we have to protect a space. And I think school is the perfect space. A school can be a space to develop human capacity, not to develop machines. I mean, I don't like thinking that anything is inevitable. I believe we should have control over the future, control over the shape that our tools take. That said, I think that if AI is going to be a path that we pursue, I do think we need to carve out spaces that are not governed by that kind of way of thinking. Yeah. And I think that there needs to be space for human creativity, for building human capacity. And I think that children deserve a space that is not engineered and optimized and algorithmically driven.
And the race in AI is basically the race to control the world. Because whoever has the dominant AI is going to control everything.
Feels like a geopolitical, it feels like a geopolitical battle that we've all been conscripted in without having any say, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Audrey Watters, I'll link to all her information in the show notes. Do you want to learn more about artificial intelligence? On April 29th, 2005, from 5:30 to 8 p.m., Eastern, I'll be teaching a 2.5 CEU course for the Darton Foundation at Albany State University. The name of the course is AI's Role in Transforming Education, A Journey to Understanding. The $25 enrollment fee benefits student scholarships. So join me, sign up at coolcatteacher.com/AI course. That's coolcatteacher.com/AI course. I hope to see you there. So one thing I like about Audrey is that she really makes all of us think, and she asks some good, hard questions about the role that artificial intelligence is taking. I have read a recent article that blamed all the ills of our current generation on Edtech or education technology. And some of those studies are really taken out of context because they were really studies on social media and that sort of thing. However, I do think that we have a place to have some valid concerns about artificial intelligence, and we should be asking questions about AI. Well, I think that AI should be disclosed. Like there's an AI newsletter I've subscribed to, and it said only 1.5% of people could tell it was AI. And I'm like, what? You're passing off AI sales reps as people when they're really AI? Like, I think that's really disingenuous.
And how much of that are they just taking out of context? How many people just heard the AI speak to them and just immediately hang up?
So for those of you looking, sharing my chat GPT, I have my 20th anniversary for my blog this year, and I've been on WordPress for about 18 years. So my database had gotten just too big and the sleuthing. So I launched a chat GPT 4.0 conversation. So I was concerned about using this particular WordPress plugin right here in the middle of this conversation that I'm having with AI. It says, many users, myself included, have successfully used it with WordPress 6.6 and 6.7. Okay, so basically, ChatGPT just lied to me. And then it just says, you held me accountable. Thank you. It's like a get out of line free card, but it claimed it did something. So what do you think about it?
That there is no intelligence in artificial intelligence. It's just a parrot. It's pretty much just a blender of everything everyone's ever said on the internet.
Yeah.
If people just read through it, because sometimes people will just look at key points in it.
Yeah.
And just skim through it, and sometimes they just won't catch stuff like that. And ChatGPT will get away with lying to you.
I think the biggest thing that we have to understand, there's something called artificial intelligence poisoning that's happening now. And fringe groups who say they want AI to be racist actually go in and use AI to try to train it to be racist. Well, one thing I teach my students is that we have a responsibility when we see AI behave in ways that are inappropriate. We need to confront AI. We need to say, what you did was racist because, like when I was testing using it for creating YouTube thumbnails, something I hate to do and I'm not very good at, the first 10 thumbnails it created was all people who look like us, like light-skinned, white people. And it didn't have any racial diversity at all. And you know, John, because you graduated from there, our school is very racially diverse. And so I want the podcast to represent that. And so I'm like, okay, you're giving me biased images. You're not having any people of color in this image of classroom using technology. And I had to confront it over and over and over. And one time it got so bad and I had gotten somewhat upset with it. And the whole screen wiped and disappeared. And then all it was the prompt at the top. And I'm thinking, yeah, somebody probably just looked at that. But I think it's our responsibility to train it, not only how it interacts with us, but to understand when it has bias.
Also, part of that is the first early chatbots that were on social media, when people got it to say things that were like that, they got taken down. So I think some people are just trying to take these down by giving them bad data and doing stuff like that.
Really?
Because they just want to get rid of it.
So they're trying to do it with AI poisoning.
So there's a lot of people that just want to get rid of it.
So let's look at something else here. And I was testing a prompt that's kind of like a life planning prompt type thing. And I'm a Christian, and in faith in God and my relationship with Jesus Christ is absolutely number one for me. So I kind of get near the end and I'm getting ready to be done and said, okay, one more question. Okay, so it answered a question. Then I'm going to read it. It says, a prayer for you. Father, thank you for seeing Vicki's faithful heart and tender spirit. Help her carry what is hers and release what is yours. Show her that resting is not retreating and that grieving is not weakness. It's a form of love. Let your word be her filter and her fuel. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so this is what I wrote for AI, and I find it offensive for you to attempt to pray because you're imitating humans and you're a tool. It's really offensive that a tool like you would pray. You can't pray. You don't have a soul. I think you should note that AI praying is offensive to many Christians. It felt like to me it was pretending to pray because it was like it was praying for me. I just found this so offensive. So the technology I teach today will be gone in 4 years and 10 years and 20 years. But the questions I teach my students to ask, that's what I want them to carry their whole life. Should AI be allowed to do this? Should I, quote, put up with this? What kind of response am I going to give? Am I going to say when it offends me? Like just ranting about what AI does nothing. We have a responsibility as users of AI to say, okay, you offend me. Like that ticks me off, really.
Yeah, it's just sickening, honestly.
But what about somebody who doesn't know better? I kind of feel like I was a little bit sick too when it did it. Like obviously that chat just kind of ended right there because
Again,
it was like,
things in the blender. What's popping out is just going to be slop most of the time.
Well, it sounds like a pretty convincing prayer.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't really know better.
Yeah, but everybody's not going to know better. Instead of opening the Bible, I mean, there's so many people, it drives me crazy on social media. They take one little verse here and one little verse there, and they say, oh, see, it's contradictory. No, you got to read the whole paragraph and read it in context. Because, like, for example, if I just said this sentence, I love AI and I hate AI, somebody could quote the end of the sentence and say, Vicki Davis said, I hate AI. And they could quote the beginning of the sentence and say, I love AI, and go and say that I don't know what I think because I'm contradicting myself. Well, sometimes you can have both feelings at once. I use AI. It saves us time on this show. I could not do a radio show and a TV show and a podcast and blog and newsletter without the way I've crafted AI to serve me. But AI praying for me, AI claiming that, trying to convince me to use a particular plugin. Like this is the kind of stuff. And some people just rant, but they don't see their responsibility to go back in that box and say, hey, that's not a good thing. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. And if someone sees that AI is giving bad advice, they literally just don't say anything when they should be correcting it.
They should be. They just leave.
Out.
Exactly. And so if people are AI poisoning and trying to make it do bad things, shouldn't we be trying to make it better?
And remember, when people are AI poisoning, a lot of the time they're trying to kill it.
Interesting.
Yeah, you don't poison something just to make it sick. You poison something to kill it. You don't spray pesticides in the yards to make all the dandelions wilt. You do it to kill them and make it to where they don't pop in the yard anymore.
Wow. I just don't think the genie can go back in the bottle. I think there's too much money involved. And I think that as being salt and light, that we're kind of in a place where we have to try to make the world a better place. There is a great author, Jason Thacker, who wrote a defining book on a great moral framework for approaching AI, which is don't anthropomorphize it. It's not a he or a she, it's an it. Every AI and the creators of the AI should be held accountable and responsible. And if the good people of the world stay silent and just close the tab and don't say something, then the world we inherit is going to be those who have ill intent, who just want to destroy. It's a lot easier to tear down a wall than it is to build one, and I'd rather be a builder.
I think the biggest problem is apathy.
Really?
It's just,
there's nothing I can do. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, and people are just so apathetic. They just go to escape it rather than try to face something that just seems insurmountable.
Yeah. Well, your grandfather was a farmer and president of the American Soybean Association. And he would come home from testifying in Washington, D.C., and I was a little girl, and he would say, you know, Vicki, if you're in a profession and you can speak out for that profession, you can do a lot more good than a chemical manufacturer or a person who sells combines or tractors, because you're in the profession, people will listen to you more. And when I became a teacher and fell in love with teaching, and I started a blog, not for any reason but to teach my students how to blog. Like, I didn't start it to travel the world. Like, I really felt a calling that I was supposed to start a blog. Of course, it's changed my life, and we went on trips, and I'm blogging in the front seat. But I've always felt like that people can make a difference in our little area of the world. You know, I just, like, we have to, Ephesians 2:10 that I always quote to you, that we are God's masterpiece created before time began for good works in Christ Jesus. Like, I feel like I'm part of the conversation for, hey, let's make this world a better place. Let's don't just throw up our hands. Like, I don't think that's part of being salt and light. Like, that's part of hiding your light, right? So, but I understand the apathy, because not only did your generation have the pandemic, which stunk, and you all got sent home, which stunk, but now you've got AI. And here's the thing about AI change is exponential change is not really, really fast change. What it is it's really, really slow at first, and then all of a sudden it's dramatically overnight everywhere. So when you're in a world of exponential change, you're in a world of overnight change. Like, the servers at ChatGPT broke when they unveiled that new image creation tool 2 weeks ago. Sam Altman, which was probably a publicity stunt, goes on and says, hey, everybody stop using our server. Too many people are making images. And so it's overnight change. And that can be really hard for people, you know? So that's where, for me, it comes back to faith. Like, what do you believe? There's an old story that I can't remember which prime minister it was of England said, but there was this young kid who came up to him, so proud of himself. And he said, sir, I would like your advice on how to live my life. And he said, okay, young man, what have you done? He says, oh, I went to college and I was first in my class. Okay. And he said, what's next? And he said, oh, I'm going to get a great job and do really, really well. And the old prime minister said, what's next? And he said, well, I'd like to find a wife and settle down and have a nice house. He said, what's next? Well, I'd like to have kids and see them grow up. He says, what's next? And he says, well, I'd like to maybe have grandchildren one day and travel and see the world. And he says, what's next? He said, well, I'd like to grow old with my wife and do things and travel the world. And he says, what's next? And he said, well, then I guess I'll die. And the prime minister said, and what's next? And the young man says, well, I don't know what's next. And he's like, young man, it seems to me you're going to spend longer in eternity than you will here on this life. And if you don't spend any of this life pondering what's next, it doesn't seem to me that you can live a very good life at all. And when I know what's next, and when the world feels like it's shaking and moving and everything's changing, my unchangeable God is here. And every day he is right here, and I don't have to be afraid, and I can speak out for things. And you know what? If I'm popular or not, Jesus Christ said himself, beware when the whole world thinks good of you.
Yeah.
My sister used to say that sometimes if certain people don't like you, it's a compliment. Because here's the deal with this cool cat teacher thing, John. You've seen it. You've seen it when I was crazy popular and we were flying to ISTE and people are recognizing me on airplanes. And then a couple years ago, after I broke my foot, I limped back into ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology Educators. I'm not going to say I lost everything, but, you know, your grandmother died and I had broken my foot and I had just had to pull out of everything. I had to stop speaking. I had to stop everything. And I limped back in, and a sweet little girl who's now a friend of mine, Alana Winnick, who's also in AI, welcomed me back. But This world moves on and they try to make you think that your identity is your accomplishment, but it's not. It's who you are in the Lord. That's the fact. So yeah, this is a show about AI and some of you are getting faith that you didn't want to get, but you know what? The stability I have comes from knowing that God is real and he has a plan for us. So there is hope. And sometimes, John, it's good to get off the news, you know?
Yeah, I got so absorbed into the news that I didn't see what was right in front of me. It's like staring into the sun. You grow blind to everything that is around you.
Yeah. So as we finish the show will be with the other episodes I've done on artificial intelligence. Maybe this one's a little more depressing than some of you won't, but hey, this is about talking about what's real. That's what Cool Cat Teacher Talk is about. This is my legacy project. This is like giving you the questions that even if the technology changes, you can pull the questions we're asking out of the show 30 years from now, and the questions can still be relevant because we are human beings, not human doings. We don't value humans by what they can do for us. We value humans because humans are inherently valuable. John's grandmother, the day she died with dementia, was worth 1,000 ChatGPTs. She was infinitely valuable because she was a masterpiece, and every day of her life had purpose, and every day of our lives has purpose. But we've got to know that AI is in everything. It's in all the algorithms we use. It's in all the technology. And so sometimes the smartest thing we can do is put down the smartphone and be smart human beings and think for ourselves. And as we interact with AI, try to train it to be the kind of AI we would want in our future, because students are our future. AI is not our future. The students in our classrooms are our future. John is our future. Our families are our future. And we need to think about what's next. We need to think about the consequences of using AI and the morality of using AI. So, John, thanks for coming on the show. This show will be at coolcatteacher.com/talk AI. Do you want to learn more about artificial intelligence? On April 29th, 2005, from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be teaching a 2.5 CEU course for the Darton Foundation at Albany State University. The name of the course is AI's Role in Transforming Education, A Journey to Understanding. The $25 enrollment fee benefits student scholarships. So join me, sign up at coolcatteacher.com/AI course.
Stay in the loop. Visit coolcatteacher.com. Visit coolcatteacher.com.
I'd also like to mention that Cool Cat Teacher Talk is now a podcast. So subscribe in your favorite podcatcher. See you later, educator.